Into the garbage chute, flyboy!
This is a rebellion, isn't it?
I call it aggressive negotiations.
The garbage will do!
Hi, and welcome to this month's Trash Compactor podcast, Star Wars from the female point of view. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
April.
So there's a lot of stuff to talk about this month. I mean, obviously, we've got Solo, a Star Wars story, coming up very quickly, and we've now got the final trailer, and TV spots are coming out, and lots of little bits of stuff online. But trailer, I believe, came out in the beginning of April?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember I was at C2E2. I watched it with Sarah, a friend of the podcast, and I have to say this trailer actually made me kind of excited about the movie, which...
Yeah.
Well, I have not been excited about this movie, really, because it's like it's a Han backstory. Like, you know, we already know so much about Han, but when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my god, it's a cowboy movie. It's space cowboys.
Yeah, the original teaser made me, I was sort of like the epitome of the I guess meme, you know, the second frame of that or whatever, I guess. But yeah, the actual full trailer made me excited, and the TV spots have made me a lot more excited for it than I was initially. I was just so and I don't even think I wasn't like against it. I was just really ambivalent about it. I just didn't care. I guess I'd be more apathetic than ambivalent. But anyway.
I mean, I'm still not too sure about a Han Solo movie. The things that are making me excited about this movie are not Han, and that's not a shade on Alden Ehrenreich. I think that he looks like he's going to be okay as Han. But I'm so excited for Lando, and I'm so excited about Chewie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe that's it. It's like, you know, he's our into finding out more about these other characters and relationships. And I'm just really excited to see where it's going to fit in with the rest of new canon. Like, what's point of it, basically, is kind of still the question. So, yeah, and I want it to be good. Like, I'm not sitting here wanting it to be bad, because I want to be entertained and I want to have cool stuff to talk about for a while, you know? Tide us over until episode 9 and just have fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing with us. I mean, there's a lot of fans who seem to, like, go into things and it's like, I'm going to hate this. And we want to enjoy the stuff that we're into. I never go in looking to not like something. So, yeah, this I've had my reservations about, and they've kind of allayed a lot of my fears. I mean, am I right? But is Malatabuk in that trailer? Like that Wookiee that Chewie hugs? That's totally Mala, isn't it?
I don't know. I heard somebody said that Junus had said when he was doing his reaction video that it was, what's the son's dumb name?
Oh, Lumpy?
Yeah, but I watched his reaction video to the trailer and I didn't catch that. Like, so I don't know. Okay, well, if it's... I figured it was his wife, but...
Yeah, well, if it's Lumplower, his nickname is Waru. I know that.
Yeah.
That's what they're calling him now. But in previous canon, his nickname was Lumpy. I don't blame them for changing it, because Lumpy's a stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, I'm excited. I love getting Chewbacca backstory. I like that they keep on adding stuff from the previous canons, even though they're kind of like sketchy, like adding stuff from the holiday special, and also something to talk about. The new Forces of Destiny episodes came out today, because we're recording this on May the 4th. Nisa, isn't it? From the Ewoks cartoon, as well as one of the Ewok cartoon bad guys, and it's like, oh my god, they're like making the Ewok cartoon canon again.
Nice. I haven't gotten to watch those yet. I'm saving them.
That's all I'll say about them. They're cute. I always enjoy watching the Forces of Destiny stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But for Solo, there's so much cool stuff coming out. Donald Glover showing off what the Falcon is like under Lando, and it's so clean.
Yeah.
And has a cape room.
Of course, a cape armoire.
Yes.
Yeah, and that double bed in the captain's quarters, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think that's there anymore.
Though I have to say, seeing a tour of the Falcon, this has just confirmed to me that the Ghost is a better ship, because they have these teeny tiny little quarters, and meanwhile the Ghost has, like, full out, like, rooms, basically, for their...
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not want to live on the Millennium Falcon.
No. Seems very communal.
Very much. It's... I mean, I'm guessing, like, because Leia in Bloodline, or... No, it was Aftermath that she said that, like, Ben was conceived on the Falcon. And it's like, I really hope Chewie wasn't on the Falcon at the time. Or maybe those headphones that Lando had are still on the ship and they're, like, noise canceling.
Okay. It's shaping up to be an intriguing movie, so I'm super pumped, and I'm going to go see it. I mean, I was always going to go see it opening night. I'm not going to kid myself. And I think a lot of people who are saying that they're not going to see it in the theater are kidding themselves.
Oh, well, I'm totally...
Because Star Wars owns their ass.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think some people might wait to find out about reviews, but some people who've said that they're not going to see it in the theater and are going to wait, I'm like, no, your butt's going to be in a seat. Yeah. Like, it might not be opening weekend, but it's going to get there.
We also have some rumors about episode 9. Nothing big, but apparently John Boyega is growing his hair out.
Yeah, and that was a tweet from him, right? That was I don't know if it was a tweet, but it was something directly from him where he's saying it was tweet or on Instagram, I don't remember.
We will find that and put that in the show notes as to where that originated from. But yeah, he was saying that he was growing his hair out because there was going to be a more lengthy bit of time between episode 8 and 9 than there was between 7 and 8, which is hard.
I don't think he actually confirmed that part. He just said you'll have to see why in the trailer, but everybody sort of like said, oh, well, it must be because there's a time skip, which, at some point in it. Though it could be, somebody brought up, well, the time skip could be like an end of movie time skip too.
Yeah, that's true.
They would obviously, with people's hair, they would start them out with that like longer hair.
Yeah.
If it was needed for that, and then cut it because how movie making works or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was a good point, that it doesn't necessarily mean a big time skip from 8 to 9. It could just be like when we wrap everything up in the end.
And it also doesn't say anything about how long the time skip is, because, I mean, hair grows out
pretty fast, yeah. I thought, and John Boyega's hair is already quite a bit longer than Finn's, so I'm like, how long are they going to grow it out? I'm excited because I'm like, Finn has had this regimental haircut for both movies, and now it's like, well, let's see what Finn's hair looks like when Finn gets to decide how he wants to do his hair. And I'm also hoping, he gets to choose his own clothes. Like, I'm super excited for that, to see what Finn's fashion sense is. People started freaking. It's like, it was so weird. Suddenly I was hearing people being like, oh no, it's going to be a 5 to 10 year time skip. And I'm like,
what?
Where's this coming from? Well, and then people were like, well, some people were conjecturing that it's going to be 5 to 10 years. And I'm like, well, just because we get more confirmation there's going to be a time skip doesn't mean these people are right about being 5 to 10 years. That's ridiculous. I figure there's going to be somewhat of one, considering the state of the resistance at the end of 8, but a year or two, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it being like 10 years. That seems like way too long. I mean, like with the prequels, they kind of had to do that.
Yeah, because you had to make this child grow up, but yeah, I could see it being a couple of years. It could even be just a few months, who knows, but 5 to 10 years just seems way out there.
Yeah.
I think people work themselves into like a frenzy over nothing.
Really? People working themselves into a frenzy over Star Wars? Never.
Oh, yeah.
There are also some casting rumors, and one of them is that they are looking for a preferably African-American actress between the ages of 18 and 26 to portray a character that is currently named Cairo? Not quite sure how to pronounce that name.
I haven't seen that, so I don't know.
But she is described as having captivating naturalness and an ease to her manner. She's a leader, a problem solver, smart with a great sense of humor and a strong will. All of this comes to her effortlessly.
That sounds amazing.
Yes. Of course, I have already seen Mary Sue fucking comments on that. And I'm like, come on, if this is in her description, there is going to be more to that in the actual movie.
Yeah, because that's the kind of personality that hides secret. Like, what's she really about? But yeah, gosh, and if that was a dude character description, I mean, come on, that's one of the longest character descriptions I've ever seen for a female character, for
Yeah.
one thing, which is great. It's not just 18 to 20, beautiful.
Mhm.
But if that was a guy character description, nobody would bat an eye.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
suck it. That's exciting. It's true, and they actually stick with wanting an African American actress,
Yeah.
and
That
we
is
don't suddenly find out that, like, I don't know who's like like Haley Steinfeld or something like cast, another brown-eyed brunette who I would love to see in a Star Wars movie, but
yeah. Well,
later.
they've specifically said here in report that I've seen, they're looking for an ethnic female with a strong preference for African American. That's how it's worded. So, but also there are rumors of another character being cast who we don't have a description of, but the character is named Mara. And the fandom
That's
explodes.
code name for the character, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There's so many people who are like, oh my god, we're getting Mara Jade. The thing is, if we were getting Mara Jade, we would not be hearing about it in a casting rumor.
Right.
When Thrawn was brought in to Star Wars Rebels, they did a fucking announcement video at Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
So if they were bringing Mara Jade into... Well, first of all, the casting would be for a character who was not named, like, Mara. They would come up with another name. And then they would make their big announcement.
I feel like with a character like Mara Jade, you're going to go to people who are offer only anyway. Like, you're not going to have people read for that.
That's true. Yeah, you'd probably have, like, you'd cast...
You're gonna offer some women the role.
I'm just trying to think... I don't know, Jessica Chastain seems to be the go-to for redheaded roles these days. But yeah, people are thinking that it's Mara Jade. I'm thinking that they're just using basically they're looking for a Mara Jade type, and so that's why they're using Mara as a code name. But I don't think it's going to be her. Or if it is her, it's going to be an incredibly neutered version of her. As I said earlier, we're recording this on May the 4th, obviously. Tons of stuff is coming out. They released new episodes of Forces of Destiny. But probably my favorite thing that has come out of May the 4th is they did a video on the Star Wars YouTube, which is Star Wars A New Hope done. It has Arrested Development.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and Ron Howard narrates it, and it's all cut together in the style of Arrested Development. And if you know that show, there's a ton of like references to that show, and it's just so good.
Yeah.
There's a ton of other really fun stuff. Heathrow Airport changed a board to show takeoffs to different planets, and this includes that all flights to Alderaan are canceled. And that info for any Kessel runs will be revealed on May 25th. So I'm pretty sure Lucasfilm had a hand in doing that. I think it was a paid...
It's pretty clever marketing. It really is. Oh, and tickets for Solo are on sale today.
Oh, that does not surprise me.
Yeah, I got my notifications last night from my movie apps and movie theater apps, and I was unable to load the AMC app like right away. So I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe sales went fairly well.
I'm gonna
like right away. I don't know.
I'm gonna wait a bit to get my tickets because I don't know exactly which day I can go see it. I think I'm usually okay. Like I was able to get in to see Infinity War on opening night. Even though I bought the tickets like 3 days before, so.
Opening there the same day as here.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, we have a really good show for you guys. We're going to be talking about some of the new Star Wars canon books that are coming out. I think that we all really love the books, so we had a lot of stuff to say. So,
yeah.
Let's just get right to that.
Told you, now I read ya.
Told you, now I read ya.
Oh, told you, now I read ya.
Welcome to this month's roundtable of the Trash Compactor podcast. We're talking about some of the Star Wars Expanded Universe canon. Specifically today, we'll be talking about Leia, Princess of Alderaan, The Last Jedi novelization, From a Certain Point of View, and Last Shot. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
Smalls.
April.
So yeah, we've got some books to talk about. Obviously, this is not all of the Star Wars books, because there's just so many of them, and they keep on coming out with more. But we thought this was a good sampling to start with. So first,
Gotta take them in batches.
Yeah, we really do. But I actually really like the grouping that we have, because I feel like they're all pretty different from each other. So the first one is Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray. And we've talked about Claudia Gray's writing before in the first podcast, because she wrote Bloodline. And she is by far my favorite writer in the current canon of Star Wars. She's so good, and her writing a Princess Leia book is always great. She's so good at writing Leia.
Yeah. I agree. I have nothing to add there.
Yeah. I actually just finished reading this book last night. I was really behind on it. Yeah.
Well, you're lucky, because I read it so long ago. I'm going to have to be reminded of some things.
Yeah, it's the least fresh on my mind, although like I have my copy here and I skimmed over it and stuff. So
well, out of all of the books that we're talking about today, that was the only one that was part of the journey to The Last Jedi. The other books all came out afterwards, yeah.
Well, not from a certain point of view, but it wasn't like branded as Journey to TLJ, so...
Oh, I got From a Certain Point of View later, so that might be why I'm forgetting the time on it. Yeah, that's actually a very recent read for me, too. Princess of Alderaan was part of the lead-up for The Last Jedi, and having read it, it's like, wow, some things make a lot more sense to me, like... So many people I know really loved Amilyn Holdo, and I'm like, yeah, she's pretty cool. And now that I've read the book, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean her introduction. It's so iconic. Like she's just this weird girl that like falls into Leia's life.
Well, I think
Did she really just fall into her life though, or is that the will of the Force?
Well, everything's the will of the Force in Star Wars,
Right.
Isn't it?
Right.
And I think Claudia Gray has owned up to the fact that young Holdo is very much Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, which I love because Luna Lovegood's an amazing character.
Yeah, I'm glad that connection was like that. She's like that's who I really within a few pages of her introduction, I was like, this is like Space Luna. Like,
maybe with a little less trauma.
Yeah.
Early childhood trauma.
Yeah.
It's Leia's coming of age story, and it's fantastic because when we first meet her in A New Hope, she's so together. She is the most together of all of the characters. Like, you see Luke become a hero from nobody, and you see Han become a hero despite being a scoundrel. But Leia's already there. She's done baking. She is a hero at the start. This, I feel, is us seeing the journey of her becoming the hero. Because, I mean, obviously she never came from nothing. She was a princess. But this is her journey into womanhood.
Yeah, I like with that and tying it, the way it's tied to The Last Jedi, not just with Amilyn, but with her becoming a hero, that very first lesson that she learns about not rushing into things whenever she brings back the refugees, but makes the situation could be worse for the people left behind.
Yes.
That, whenever I thought of that immediately whenever I saw The Last Jedi with everything with Poe and the lessons he was learning. And I was just like, yeah, Leia sees herself in him. That's why she's like, get it together.
It also brings sharp focus to the line "too many losses." I mean, obviously Leia has had losses throughout the movies and everything, but we see like right from the beginning with her friendship with Amilyn, it's very much tinged with loss because of Leia's whole relationship with, I want to say his name is pronounced Kier?
That's how I pronounce it.
Head, yeah.
Yeah, Kier.
Who, of course, this relationship is very interesting because there's been so much controversy in fandom about everything with Han and Kira in the Solo movie, and everybody's pearl clutching about, no, Han can't have another love interest because he loves Leia, and nobody seems to understand that you can have more than one love in your life. And I mean, like, they don't say it, but Leia lost her virginity in this book.
Yeah,
She totally did.
I'm glad that wasn't. Yeah, it was a very good young adult fade to black.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad
great.
she didn't lose her virginity to Han. I mean, this is obviously completely like subjective, but I don't know. I didn't want Han to be like the first man romance in Leia's life. I don't know.
It's kind of this gross kind of patriarchal thing of a woman can only be with one man or she's tainted. And
yeah, it's funny though, but people do have that same attitude about Han too, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just they're so iconic.
Yeah, which is just more weird because, you know, he's 29 in A New Hope, right?
Yeah. And he's 29 and he's been like he's not like a sheltered 29. He's been around.
He's not his son in
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Kylo Ren I'm okay with. Like, the whole virgin thing. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense with Han. And even, like, from a love angle, it doesn't so much make sense, you know? Just obvious, he's fallen in love. Like, we'll talk about it later, but he's half in love with Sana in the last shot.
Yeah.
He loves to be in love. Like, he's a loving he's a serial monogamist almost,
Yes.
I would say.
I can definitely see that.
At least that's my like view of him as of now.
But yeah, I think, and you know, the thing with being upset about Kira, I think that it's mostly has to do with just their love being so iconic that people just, you know, think of them more as soulmates.
Yeah.
So it's like, how could there be anybody else ever? And it's like, that's just life, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's funny that Leia's boyfriend is named Kier and Han's love interest in the movie is named Kira. Like,
yes, that's pretty funny.
Interesting.
That's an interesting parallel.
Like, I'm like, oh, like, hopefully they'll serve like similar narrative functions. Although hopefully I don't want Kira to die just because I'm sick of female lovers dying.
But the whole the betrayal thing, I mean, Kira, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as betrayal, but
no, Kira. That's what's interesting is that, like, obviously I was sad for Leia because, you know, it was an awful thing to go through, but functionally I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, she's like, he's getting like killed for her woman pain. Which it's like, it just like inverts, and so like I guess I'm hoping that like they'll sort of mirror each other as first love interests, but
Of course, another great thing that we got was more character information on Leia's parents. We actually got to see her interact with them, and anything about Breya is fucking interesting as hell because we have so little.
Wondering, since, you know, you've read Legends, what was there much information on Breya?
No. I don't. Well, I kind of, by the time the prequels came out, I was kind of like done with Star Wars, so I didn't read a whole lot of the books post. So I don't even know if we really had a name for Breya.
Oh, you know, I should check because I do have all the like original prequels, visual dictionaries.
Well, I know by Revenge of the Sith, her name was out there.
Yeah, but she didn't appear until Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
She wasn't mentioned. She wasn't an entity of any kind. And even then, when she does appear in Revenge of the Sith, you know, it's literally that, an appearance, no dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a very mysterious character. We definitely had more about Bail. But anything related to Alderaan was really kind of kept very close to the vest as far as I can remember. So what we're getting now is so much better. Like, we're actually getting information, and it's really nice to see that Leia, and I think Amelin mentioned something about this, seeing your parents as people and getting into fights with your parents when you're this age.
Yeah.
I was really struck by when they're having dinner with Tarkin, and they pull the whole thing where they fake that Bail is having an affair with Mon Mothma.
That is one of the most
so
funny things in Star Wars, to be honest. That whole dinner scene, I love dinner scenes, where tense things are going on. So, like, back when I still watched Game of Thrones, those were my favorite ones, where everybody's sitting around eating and being side-eyeing each other. But yeah, that was hilarious and a perfect thing to do. Like, Bail and Mon are having an affair, and I laughed so hard.
It was so perfect, and how everybody just leaned into it immediately. They're like, "Oh yes, this is what's going on." Yeah. I
love the appearance by Panaka, who I never as soon as when that came up, I'm like, wow, that's like out of nowhere, but it's so brilliant. Yeah.
It's really cool. I was so excited that they recanonized him as I think he was a Moff in Legends, and they recanonized that with him, and I don't know, it was just kind of like a deep pull, and it was really nice to see.
And the fact that he knew right away who Leia was.
Yeah, that added so much tension.
Yeah, I got chills in that moment. I was just like, oh, wow. Like, cause it's those moments that, she brushed up against the truth,
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh yeah, when her parents are like, so Leia, why did you go to Naboo?
Yeah.
Is Leia Princess of Alderaan considered one of the young adult books? Because I know they kind of have levels of the books.
I'd say it's a young adult book. It's not a junior novel. Junior novels are usually they're slightly.
Those are like
say less mature.
The Before the Awakening and The Moving Target and that kind of book, right?
I don't know. I don't know if those are junior novels. It gets a little fuzzy. Because anyway, yeah. But Leia, Princess of All, is definitely like a YA novel. Lost Stars and Rebel Rising, I don't know, they all have sex scenes. Well, not sex scenes, but clearly the characters had sex. So yeah. Speaking of Alderaan, I thought it was so interesting, because we're all aware that, Alderaan is peaceful, but it was interesting with, Leia's coming of age, like the royal ceremonies and the trials. I loved the mention that as she's going down the halls, doing this ritual, to become officially like princess and heir and adulthood. Yeah, Claudia meant how they mentioned that it used to be everybody would literally fighting to get to the throne room, which is really cool, like a deep, just an interesting nod to the fact that Alderaan wasn't always peaceful. Yeah. They had to work for peace, and so I don't know, I love those kind of world building things where it's this is an echo of something that was once really, really violent.
I'm just having flashes to Black Panther now.
Yeah, I love that. You guys know me, so I'll probably be, I think I mentioned this when we were emailing beforehand, but I'll probably be talking about cyborgs and droid stuff.
Yeah. And talk about Breha and her.
Breha, I love that, she has a prosthetic heart and lung. Star Wars has this history of very much it's doing the whole ugly human equals bad person. And
yes,
there's that very famous when Obi-Wan says Anakin is more machine than man now, it's very much this sort of there's this attitude towards prosthetics and
yeah.
And I really do think that Breha might be the narrative actually makes it into a beautiful thing. Leia remembers thinking that they were glowing flowers.
Yeah.
Because her prosthetic glows, and there's are they called candle flowers on Alderaan? They kind of
candlewick flowers.
Yeah,
they glow. And she thought, I don't know, I think that's really beautiful.
And it's also really nice that Breha could have had back to treatments to have the skin healed over. But
That's
she
true,
does
yeah.
it because, like, it reminds her of the fact that she survived. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice, and it gives a different like narrative for potentially like contextualizing limb losing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think of like Darth Vader and Saw Gerrera and Brea as like the cyborg parents, you know, the dark, the gray and the light. Like I think like Saw Gerrera is the other like parental figure that ends up needing like assistive devices for breathing, and I'm like I don't know, I think it's good to have like a spectrum and not be to have parents, I don't know, parents as monsters, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that about Brea. Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah. Thank you, Claudia, for so much. Like, seriously, I've said it before, and I will say it, like, probably 1,000 times after this. She is my favorite writer in the current expanded universe. She is so good, and I want to give her all of the Leia books because I trust her implicitly with Leia.
Yes.
Yeah, she really gets Leia's voice so well.
Though, this next book that we're going to be talking about, I have no complaints about how Leia was written in this either. It's The Last Jedi novelization by Jason Fry. They obviously based off of the script for The Last Jedi, so he did have a little bit of an edge there, but not much because, I mean, it's always hard to write a novelization. This is one of the best novelizations that I've read.
I agree.
Yeah, and I remember him, like, he had teased some stuff on Twitter because he had a stack of books that he was reading to prepare. I think that was him. And,
Yes.
you know, there was so much stuff in there, including Bloodline and just all the, like, and you can tell that he
Jason
has...
Fry basically read all of the other, like, canon books that have come out and referenced most of them. And the comics. And, like, Battlefront.
Super awesome.
Yeah, which is, I think, I had a lot of problems with the Force Awakens novelization, which was Alan Dean Foster. And Alan Dean Foster is an incredible writer, but he's so fucking old school that it didn't feel like it didn't really fit with the Star Wars canon the same way that this book does. It was very much a novelization, while this is a novel version of the movie that happened to come out.
That's a great way of putting it, yeah.
So, let's throw it open. Obviously, we don't need to talk about the plot of the novelization because hopefully you've seen the Last Jedi movie, but what bits that got put into this just, like, really grabbed you?
For me, it was that scene. I was just talking about this one today with somebody too, so it's fresh on my mind. When Rey is sitting above everything and she's waiting for Chewie in Snoke's escape craft, and she's pondering, like, what it means what happened, a little bit about what it means, but she's thinking about the implications of her not killing Kylo whenever she woke up in the throne room and he was still out. And, like, to me, like, the way he set up that scene was very cinematic, because I can, like, clearly picture her, like, just out of the fray, but she can see everything that's going on while she's having to wait, you know, because she can't do anything. She can't go blazing in there in her little escape craft, you know?
Yeah.
And then it focuses in on her and her thinking back to those moments. And this is a moment, and I think I liked that it was added because it was something that we'd speculated about a lot, and we're just like, oh God, you know, why did she leave without killing him? And just the fact that she comes to this conclusion about just letting the Force use them as their instrument, and that his life was not hers to take. That was
that line,
so perfect. So that was for me, definitely.
I really, there's so much. I love this novelization, but since I'm the droid girl, I'm going to talk about the little droid points of view, and also, like, just the fact that he underlines the fact that that ships, basic, you know, operating systems are basically droids as well. So, like, everything's sentient. You know,
I was so gonna say that. That was totally mine.
That's some of my favorite stuff. Like, I loved BB-8 talking with Black One, Poe's X-wing, and I loved later R2 interacting with the Falcon, because it's fun to get just, you know, droid point of view, period. But the fact that those, like, ships, they were like characters to me too. I mean, of course, and we know, like, the Millennium Falcon is, like, such an iconic ship that we're kind of like, oh yeah, it's alive or whatever. But like, it really kind of is. Yeah, I loved how R2, you know, is thinking about how, like, it has 3 brains and they all, like, argue with each other about how things are supposed to work, and like, but one of them loves like romantic gossip and like smutty jokes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
gosh, I'm sure the Millennium Falcon has seen things.
Oh yeah.
Heard things.
And so, like, I just love that. It makes sense in the Star Wars universe that with the way the Force is and, you know, binds everything together, that, like, pretty much everything has the potential to be, like, truly alive and,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and sold. Even the ships. And it all makes it very... I could write a whole essay about this, so I'll try to keep it short. But, like, so then, you know, we met Black One. We know Black One is, like, a personality, and then it gets blown up.
Yeah.
Which I was laughing at myself because I was like, Kylo Ren, how dare you? This is too far.
It's almost like that website, doesthedogdie.com.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
I was like,
It
okay,
doesn't
all right,
matter
good.
about
He
the
didn't-
squadron. You know,
I was
it's
like,
just-
sure, yeah, whatever. No, of course it does. But like, I thought it was just in Star Wars, like with the world building, like you really have to like not assume that things aren't people. Like
Yeah.
there's a literal chance in their universe, in their real world, that like it's really so much better to like err on the side of this is a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Yeah. So I love the droid stuff, both like angstily and like comedically. I don't know. It's just great.
I think there's so much little stuff in here, but I think two of the things that I really like, other than the droid thing, because I totally would have said that, but I really like the prologue in this, where, you know, we have the last temptation of Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot. I was like, Cammy is canon.
Well, I think Cammy's always kind of existed in like this, you know, nebulous like sub-canon. Like
Right.
it's very strange how they treat the deleted scenes from the earlier movies. But yeah, she's canon now, and I really liked Luke having this moment right at the beginning, and you're very confused. It's like at first you're like, okay, is this like a flashback? But then you realize it's like, oh wait, but things aren't lining up, and like it's obviously an alternate universe. So what's going on? And it's the last temptation of Luke Skywalker, and it's just such a wonderful way to get him to into the story, like by giving him this breather moment. You know, so many people were complaining about the end of The Force Awakens and then having that, you know, cut by Luke's first scene of being him throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. By starting like this, you're kind of cutting it a little bit by rewinding it a little bit and getting into Luke's headspace again.
That's the beauty of a novel, you know, and the fact that like Jason Fry really like used this as like a medium of a novel, like what it can do for a story, rather than just being like, oh, here's like the action. I'm describing the action we saw on screen.
Yeah. Well, you also end up, whenever you do that, you end up with so much point of view hopping, and that happens a lot in the TFA novelization. Like sometimes I swear it'd be mid-paragraph. I'd be like, wait, why am I in Han's head? I was just in Finn's head, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There are lots of points of view here, but like it doesn't become like leapfrogging from one person to another. Yeah, I love the prologue. It's almost like a short story in and of itself, because I got like super invested in Luke and Cammy's relationship just like for that little short time. So like, I don't know. It was a beautiful story.
It was very
I did like that I liked that how many times he took the opportunity to tell bits of the story from minor characters' points of view.
Yeah.
Like Cato Kokonik's the droids.
Was there something from Tally's point of view at all?
I can't remember. I think there might be. I had to return my copy to the library. So I can reference it.
We get Tally's death from her point of view. Actually, yeah. I just was like, oh yeah, I remember, because it was the whole and then nothing sort of like ending to that. Yeah.
We do get we get a lot from Kylo's point of view, but one of the most important, I think, is Kylo's point of view during the moment when he's debating whether or not to shoot Leia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which really lays out plainly. It's like so many people have like again gotten really wanky about Kylo totally would have done it, and he let his wingman do it instead so he wouldn't get his hands dirty. And it's like, no, he did not want that to happen.
Yeah, that was just heart-wrenching. I'm struggling to find words for it because the words that Fry uses are just like perfect.
I think it's the way too he wove it with Leia and what she was thinking at the same time too. So it was like the same effect as what's going on in those shots of them where it's cutting back and forth between them in the movie. And he managed to get that same effect with word, which was kind of amazing.
Yeah, that I loved that whole scene with Leia in hyperspace was wonderful. And because she thinks that she's taking stock, and she thinks about Brea, and like you could like there's that whole scene before like they get hit. I don't know. It's another insight. I love the way he wrote Leia relating to the Force, because it called back to Aftermath a little bit, and all the other previous Leia material, but like she's in hyperspace, like checking in on people's emotions.
Yeah, I that part got me a little bit because I literally like a week before written Kylo describing what traveling in hyperspace was like for him as a kid, and I described it very similarly to that, except he couldn't control what he was picking up. And I was just like, holy shit.
That whole, her thinking about Ben as a child. I don't know. I love Leia, you guys.
Yeah, there's sentiment shared all around.
Yeah.
And the fact pretty much everyone is doing her justice for the most part in new canon. And it's...
Yeah. We already have more Leia-centric books in, like, the 20 or so they've come out with than in, probably nearly 100 Legends Universe books, so...
There's a lot of Leia-centric stuff in the comics too. I forgot. This is. Sorry to hop back to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, real quickly, but since like we have Claudia Gray to thank, sort of as like the foundation of canon Leia, kind of. I was remembering that like she put some little like crossovers with Lost Stars into Princess of Alderaan. Did you guys notice that?
I think I might have.
She like Leia is at the same ball. They go to that ball with the Imperial officers, and so in Lost Stars, Thane Kyrell danced with Leia, and so we get the same event, but like what's going on with her and her friends. Nice. And then the ship they hire when they're looking for a ship at the Emcee and Amelin, it's the Mighty Oak and Ash, the ship of the old Wookiee lady that Thane Kyrell signs on with for a while, which I didn't catch until like I like was rereading it. But I was rereading it.
I caught the first one, but not that one.
I was rereading it to find the section where Leia almost like hires the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. So anyway.
I was like, when I read that, I was like, Claudia, if you don't write fan fiction, you read it, or you love fan fiction writers, because you just gave us
she totally does.
AU like canon divergent like little starting point there, and it was amazing. I loved her so much for that.
She's totally a fangirl. I mean, she's admitted it, like based off of the Bloodline podcast that we did. We said that she must be a fangirl, and she said, "Was there ever any question about that?"
Well, yeah, because a lot of her novels, they're fix it. They include little like moments of fix it, like fix it fic in like the best kind of way. Like just sometimes she'll just come up with this like great like explanation for something that like is kind of like inconsistent in the movies, and she'll make it make sense. So anyway, sorry, back to The Last Jedi novelization.
Well, does anybody else have any points to make on The Last Jedi?
Not that I can think of now.
Other than the fact that it's really good.
It was so good, and there were so many little Easter eggs, but like not in a like there were little like meta things, but not in a way that was like annoying or like I'm so clever. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we got the throne room from Snoke's point of view. We have to talk about that.
Oh yes.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay,
Right.
I'm gonna
Well, you brought it up, so you start.
I was really surprised that we got that, and that we got so much out of that. Like him basically was sort of thinking about his whole like how he manipulated this. And this was interesting because back when people were thinking that Gallius Rax was Snoke, I always said, I don't think Snoke's that much of a chess player, because Gallius was such a brilliant chess player. And then reading this, I'm like, oh, I guess maybe he was like not a great chess player because he fucked up real bad. But he was thinking in those terms of like several steps ahead, and like banking on like the psychology of like he really
the entire Skywalker family, basically.
Yeah. And so that was just even crazier than I kind of imagined. Also, I think it's more obvious that he sees Kylo as a possession, like a collectible almost. I think that kind of came out so much because he's so obsessed with the lineage. He's his own personal little pocket Skywalker, because I think otherwise he would have like given up on Kylo a long time ago, especially after they knew about Rey, So
I think this might be all we ever get from Snoke, which I'm okay with because I'm not really all that enamored with the we must find out everything about Snoke.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do complain about the idea of things being revealed in novels or comics rather than the movies, but I think that's something that people are going to have to live with because Star Wars is not
great.
It's not a movie franchise, it's a multimedia experience now.
And the thing is like I get that, and there are some things I wish were more clear in the movies, but like from my point of view, like reading up on Star Wars, it's always kind of been that way. Like Ewoks are not named Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. There's so many things that we like take for granted and we know the names of in Star Wars, like classic Star Wars, that were not in the movies.
Yeah.
That were not named in the movies. So like people,
first name is never said.
Yeah. So like people complaining about it. Like I understand that that's like a complaint. That's something you don't like from storytelling in general. You want things to be contained in the film, but this isn't a new thing to Star Wars. Even like before they deliberately, they wiped the slate clean and decided to be like carefully telling all the same story. That's a big like peeve of mine, just because I love, not that I don't have like criticisms, but I just love the multimedia story like we're getting, and so like I don't know.
There are just some things that like don't make for good storytelling if you try to cram it all in. It's fun, but then you don't have to have all this other background to enjoy it though, because the movies are self-contained.
It's not always important to read novelization, but this one I think adds so much to the movie that people that had a problem with the movie might like it a bit more if they get some of the background. So yeah, I suggest people give it a shot.
And the style is really great too.
It is, yes. For a completely different style, we're going to go over to From a Certain Point of View, which is a very special book in the Star Wars. And I think we'll actually end up having to talk about it again because there's just so much to talk about in this. This book was done specifically for the 40th anniversary of the original Star Wars movie. And it is 40 stories by 40 different authors, all from different characters in that movie, and some of them not in that movie, but all set during A New Hope. Very much kind of in tune with the Legends Tales of books. I mean, we can't possibly talk about them all right now, but let's just talk about a few of our favorites. And since we were already talking about Claudia Gray, I would really like to start off with her piece, and that's Master and Apprentice, which is from a character who's not in A New Hope, but one that is close to my heart, and it's all about Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, that stunning. It's so good.
It gave us so much mythology that we'd been lacking. Because we never really understood the nature of Force ghosts. It's like, why don't they show up all the time? Like, they can just pop in wherever they want. And this actually explains why they don't, because it's like it hurts them. They don't want to not be a part of the Force.
Yeah. I joked from a fan fiction angle, it's kind of cool to find out that, they're pretty much corporeal. You can touch them.
Yeah, that certainly feeds some fanfic.
Yeah, and it's always just her language is so lovely, and she really paints beautiful pictures with her words, and just the emotion of the piece. It was magnificent, and I really loved that exploration and that she used those characters to do it. And, the sort of just, what was Obi-Wan doing while he was waiting for Luke to come back and knowing what had likely happened,
I mean, we speak so much about Claudia Gray being able to write Leia, but I think that this story really shows that she has a reverence for all of the Star Wars characters and wants to be able to get them all properly. And she does a fantastic job of that. I love her. Love her so much.
Smalls and I probably will both say the Baptist, right?
Yeah, April, I was going to let you talk about that one.
Okay.
Obviously, I'll chime in, but if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I've told so many people literally that it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read, but it's also one of those, like, if I try to describe it to people,
I hate to
sound stupid.
Yeah, I hate to try to be like, oh well, trash compactor monster in A New Hope is actually Force sensitive.
People laugh. And I would have too if somebody had just told me that was the plot of this story, and I would probably have giggled too, because it sounds ridiculous.
It really does. Yeah.
I knew who Nnedi Okorafor was, but I hadn't read anything of hers yet. And like, I seriously, after I read the Akata Witch books as soon as I could after I read the story, because I was so impressed. It was so beautiful. But yeah, there we have, because we have this combination of what we were talking about before with this is a hideous creature, but she's got this beautiful mind and beautiful soul.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she, just seems to like exude light. We get more, we get this whole world building with her society and her world, from a creature nobody probably even really thought was sentient before.
Oh no one did.
Yeah, and I don't think any of her captors would have any idea that she has a society
and a family.
Yeah, she's like a pest control thing.
Yeah,
that's why they kidnap her.
She has a name, Omi. It's like, I just love that she was given a name.
I love Omi so much. Yeah.
Somebody did say that they would love to see an Omi movie directed by Guillermo del Toro, and I am so here for that.
Yeah. The only person who could I would trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Baptist is one of my favorite like new canon short stories. Probably it and I Droid from The Legends of Luke.
That was good.
God, they both make me cry in the best way. So
like finding out too that she was trying to help Luke.
You never
drown him, and that she recognized this thing in him immediately, and just like, oh my God, I'm like tearing up thinking about it. I want to read it again soon, because it was such a great way of just turning everything on its head and like making you sort of confront your assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like who is this thing that we like laugh about. It's a person.
Yeah, do something for a person that she connected with on a soul level, even though he didn't know it, she did. So
this is the brilliant thing about this book is like you could have done an entire book that was nothing but people at Mos Eisley Cantina, which obviously they did. But they're actually taking the time, and it's like, well, what about the Trash Compactor Monster? What is the Trash Compactor Monster story? Nobody saw this coming.
Yeah, I would have expected somebody to do a comedic take on it, and which would have been fine, but I'm so glad we got this instead. I love the last line of it. I think the last line of the story is, who will I be the next time around? Yes. Because her society, her culture believes in reincarnation, and that's beautiful. So
she's reincarnated in Jason Syndulla, who was born on the same day.
Okay. Actually, that's what's great. You can like take any one of your fave and be like, it's actually Omi.
Yeah, I joked, half joked. I was like, oh no, Rey is Omi reincarnated, because there was so much parentage wank and so much. And at the time, I was just like over the idea of her being a legacy character at all. So it was mostly a joke, but it kind of wasn't either.
I would kind of be here for that.
Crack taken seriously.
Which there's plenty of in this book. Another one of the stories, which this is right at the end, but I want to mention it. Wills by Tom Engelberger. The very last story.
Comedy.
It's so cracky, but I love it.
I want to talk about Rey Reen by Sabatahir. Yeah, that's about Rey Reen is the Tusken Raider girl. Like besides droids, I love the Tusken Raiders because like I can't remember. Again, this is kind of like like the Baptist in the sense that like if I summarize it, I'm like, oh, there's this Tusken Raider girl and she wants to get off world and she finds a kyber crystal and like she's force sensitive and it calls to her. Like that sounds a little like her. But it's beautiful because it's like getting a glimpse into the Tuskens' culture, both from like, from their point of view and, a woman's point of view. And it's written by the thing is about the Tusken Raiders on a meta level is that, I mean, you guys know this. They were kind of like the savage Injuns in the Western part of, the Western genre part of A New Hope. And then also, like, when I go on Tumblr, like, I don't do this a lot because there's just not a lot of good Tusken content. But what I have seen a lot of them being used to make, like, Islamophobic joke posts, which is, like, an easy thing to do. They'll be like, oh, these are... And so, like, the fact that this story is written by... Sabatahir is... I believe she is Middle Eastern. Yeah, okay. Sabatahir is Pakistani American. So, it's not really good to take, like, non-human aliens or, like, whatever and like, equate them to, like, non-white humans in the real world.
Yeah.
But the fact that the sand they've been used there's a lot of racist stuff around them, both like in universe and out universe. And so like I really appreciated that this story was written by a woman of color, because it is canon that, you know, with what little we know about Tuscan culture, is that it's very divided on a gender binary. And part of Rayreen's thing, she wants to get off world because she doesn't feel like she fits in that society. She wants to fight, and she's not allowed to because she's a woman. But the thing is, it's never like, it's from her perspective. And there's this beautiful passage where she reflects on how like she's not like disrespecting that culture. Like she has a moment where she thinks about how the culture of her parents has kept them alive in a really difficult environment for generations. And so like I feel like, I don't know, it would be really easy to be like, oh, these are like the evil sand people, and they have these taboos about showing their faces, and they're patriarchal, and having a character that's like, I don't belong here, I want much more than this provincial life. But like she does it, she wants to get away and have a different life, but she's not like, there's no like authorial like hatred towards this like supposed like backward culture. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It
You guys
totally
read the story.
does.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just loved it so much. Like it was, I think, April, I'm sure like when we first read it, I think you either messaged me or I messaged you because you were like, you got a Tuscan story.
Yeah, no, I messaged you. I was like, oh my God, how thrilled. I was like the Tuscan one and the Jawa one. I was just like, oh my God.
Yes. Oh gosh. I didn't know that Griffin McElroy was such a good writer.
Yeah, I don't know much about the McElroys at all. So I was
me neither. So I was just like, whoa, this is really beautiful. Like it was hilarious and funny. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about Rayr, and there's a lot of like meta stuff in there. I mean, and I just love her as a character too. I could like talk forever, but
Well, we should also just shout out the amount of diversity that is in this list of writers. Like, if you look at the Tales of books, there's you'll get a woman or two in there, but it's for the most part white dudes. And I feel like, from a certain point of view, is far more diversive in the people that they had writing for them. Granted, they had more stories, but still, I think the new canon is definitely reaching out more towards people of different genders, different races, and I want to see more of it.
Yeah, this was the one where like it really got showcased. I mean, because it's like, from a certain point of view, it's important to tell the story. It's important or like fun to look at, you know, invisible points of view on an in-universe level, but on a meta level, it was nice to be like, oh, yeah. And so here's some non-white people talking about.
And I think in some way, you know, these things it obviously shape perspective as well. Like going back to the Baptist, you know, Okorafor, she's Nigerian American, you know, that. And like reading the Akata witch stories, which take place in Nigeria, I was like exposed more to like, you know, cultural and spiritual differences there. And I'm like, you know, if you tasked, you know, a white man to write that story, would it have been the same story at all?
Or
you know?
a white woman. To be honest. Like,
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That's true of Sabata here too. Like these stories wouldn't be good if they were written by white people.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stories that are filling in gaps and questions that people had from the original movie. And I think one that really displays that is The Sith of Data Work by Ken Liu.
It's one of the funniest things I've ever read in my life.
It is
like,
incredibly funny.
I was reading out parts of it. While I was reading it, I was subjecting like my husband and daughter to like bits and pieces of it, like, because I would just laugh and then I'd be like, you guys gotta hear this. Yeah,
that, and I think an incident report by Mallory Ortberg, I think is how her last name is pronounced.
Yeah, Ortberg.
Both of these stories really kind of show, like, we only ever see this wars part of Star Wars. Yeah. I mean, it's right there in the title. But, I mean, like, these are, like, governments, like, they're bad. It's a bad government, but there's like all of this oversight and shit that needs to be worked out, and I love that they're finally addressing them. It's like, it's not all about these shooty lasers being, you know, shot at people. That, you know, paperwork needs to be filled out.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was thinking of the incident report whenever I was talking just now. I was like, wait, what the fuck?
Oh, both of them, I think, are
great.
But
they're both great. But I was just like, oh, wait. Yeah, no, they're both, and you're right. They're both fantastic in that way.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
the
for
Sith,
sure.
Sith of data work is where we get the explanation for why they don't
Yeah.
shoot the escape pod, which has
Yeah.
been plaguing people for 40 years, which granted they didn't mean in the original movie, but it's nice to get like a Watsonian explanation for it. I'm very big on the Watsonian versus the Doyleist, and I love to have Watsonian explanations to things. And an incident report. I mean, like, it's seriously funny.
I just thought, like, just his indignity, like the entire thing. I just can't. You do have it, like, you have specific Smalls. You have the book in front of you, right? Do you?
I do have it. I actually got it at the it was available at the library today because I don't own it.
Yeah.
An incident report. I'm going to find it.
Specific parts I wanted to just like quote because
Well, I know like one bit that I really loved when he's like saying it's like, I don't want to disrespect Vader's religion, but it has no place in this meeting.
yes.
Moreover, I am not a bigot. It is a point of pride with me that in my native sector of Saswena, there are over 300 distinct religious traditions with active practitioners, all officially recognized by their imperial administrator. I myself am a man of faith, as it happens, and believe that imperial unity can only be strengthened through cooperative and constructive dialogue among citizens following diverse spiritual traditions. I would welcome, under more appropriate circumstances, the opportunity to learn more about Lord Vader's understanding of the Force and how it enriches his daily life. I do not welcome Lord Vader quite literally attempting to shove his religious beliefs down my throat.
The idea of Vader's life being enriched just kills me. Like,
this was a military meeting at a military installation, attended exclusively by military personnel. I will not apologize for asking Lord Vader to refrain from commandeering the conversation into a referendum on his religious devotion, nor will I apologize for attempting to give credit to the hardworking men, women, and Neutra whose years of dedication made this day possible by praising the capability of the Death Star station.
Can Lucasfilm hire you to do the audiobooks? Because you did a really good job there.
Like that imperial accent is fantastic.
Thank you. But yeah, no, it's so funny. I love how it enriches his daily life. The other story I kind of wanted to point out was Alexander Freed's Mon Mothma story.
Yes, contingency plan.
Because she obviously, we now know she's like a key figure in the rebellion, but she wasn't in A New Hope, the movie, or she wasn't there till Return of the Jedi, right?
She wasn't there till Return of the Jedi, and we needed an explanation, especially after Rogue One, where it's like, okay, she was just on the base, so where was she in A New Hope?
Yeah, and Alexander Freed did a great job of writing the Rogue One novelization and writing and giving us extra. Like, I would say the Rogue One novelization is almost as good as the TLJ novelization, in my opinion. He did a good job writing her in that novel, and this felt totally in line with that. And I love it because it gives you so much insight into her and how, like, unsure they were about whether they were going to win. And I love, it's a little bit similar, not exactly the same, but you get a glimpse of an alternate future. You sort of get an alternate canon divergence where the Death Star isn't destroyed and she surrenders to Palpatine for, like, really good I don't know. It was just chilling and beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, some of the stories in here are just, like, fun, and then some of them, I don't want to say just fun because I love fun. And Star Wars is fun, but
it strikes a balance, I think. That
yeah,
there's a
but
lot
there are
of, like,
people, like,
off the
this
wall
one was
stories.
a really but this one was one of those really deep character pieces, and
Yeah.
I appreciate it. There's been no because Mon Mothma, we talked about this last podcast, is she's been so well treated in new canon. She hasn't gotten like her own piece that she's the center of, but she's been treated so well in all her appearances.
I feel like we might eventually get something that's bigger from her, like maybe a novel, because they seem to not be afraid to write women anymore, and they're not afraid to write politics anymore, because for years they were really scared of writing politics, probably because of what happened with the Phantom Menace.
One thing, because we were talking about things that are just explained, and it's not like it was a plot hole, but, we don't serve their kind here.
Yes.
I love we got the explanation, and that it was such, again, he could have gone funny with this.
Yes.
But he didn't. This character has PTSD from the Clone Wars, and that's why he doesn't like droids.
Yes.
And Chuck Wendig, handled PTSD beautifully in the Aftermath series too. And I actually on Twitter thanked him for taking PTSD seriously, and he was like, "Oh yeah, definitely my intent." So yeah,
I
just
remember
thought
a
that
couple
was
years
great.
ago when I don't even know what I was doing, but suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, there were droids in the Clone Wars. That's why the guy didn't like
Yeah.
droids. And then to see this in an actual story, I was like, oh yeah, and it was done so well.
Yeah, no, there's just so many stories. I definitely think that there's going to be another podcast where we talk about more of the stories because they.
Yeah, we should next time.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface of just the ones that I want to read it again to experience it more. But I think that we should move on to the last book that we'll be talking about, and it's the most recent one I believe that has come out, at least in terms of novels. There might be some lighter kid stuff that have come out, but this was Last Shot, a Han and Lando adventure.
Novel, yeah.
Yeah, or I didn't know what they had called it. Yeah, the adventure that's what they called the Legends Han Solo books. But yes, Last Shot, which just came out a few weeks ago at this point.
Yeah, maybe 1.5.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all finished it pretty recently, right?
Yeah, we did, because
I finished it. Yeah, this is the freshest one on all of our minds, I think.
Yeah.
I finished it today, so.
Yeah, they're not doing a journey to Solo, but this is obviously the book that they're intending to ramp people up for Solo.
Yeah, well, it worked.
It did.
For me.
Yeah.
Although it just stands well on its own. Where do we start?
I love that I'll talk about how fresh it is. Just if we're going to start big, his style is very fresh in this universe. And it's perfect for these characters, especially for Lando, for them being young and still sort of being not totally jaded ex-war heroes. And he wasn't afraid to be contemporary with his language, and it just worked perfectly.
I loved his story from a certain point of view, and so when I learned he was writing this one, I was so excited. There's nothing reverent about the way he writes in Star Wars, which isn't to say he's disrespectful. It's just that he's kind of I
think he writes the characters as characters rather than icons, which is...
Yes, that's it. Thank you. He's not precious with them at all.
Yeah, there's no idols or whatever. He's not afraid to be ding dong, you are wrong.
And then he gets the Han and Lando relationship, that scene where they're insulting each other while repairing the ship together, and it just sort of fades to black, and you're like, oh, so they were doing this for 2 hours while they worked on the ship. That's amazing.
And it makes so much sense too. I feel
how they worked all their shit out that way.
I feel like Daniel Jose Alder writes Han as well as Claudia writes Leia.
I could see that.
Guys could be.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just gets, and both of them are amazing writers, so it's not like they can only write those characters. But I don't know. It's it really clicked.
Yeah, no, this actually works really well as almost a companion piece to Leia, Princess of Alderaan, because when I was first reading this, I was. I got a bit confused by the jumping back and forth in the timeline, but then I realized it was a feature, not a bug, because kind of actually the main plot that is going on is not super duper important, and actually, as I've said several times before, it's basically the plot of a Futurama episode. Because, it's let's make droids turn against everybody. But the actual story is seeing these two guys go from being, young, dumb smugglers into these heroes who are put on pedestals and don't really know how to fit in this new world of the army is being disassembled by Mon Mothma. They're living legends, and they don't really know how to be living legends. So,
which fits perfectly with what's been going on with the sequel trilogy. So I know there's been concerns about how Solo is going to fit in with the themes of what it's going to add to the universe and how it might relate to what's going on within the sequel trilogy and Rogue One and everything. And there you have it, because ultimately, so far, the sequel trilogy has been as much about Star Wars as it is our Star Wars movies. So you get that meta level, what does it mean to be a legend? Sort of, can people ever really live up to it? Sort of themes, the same thing that was happening with Luke, who is, again, God, really absent from this one.
Do they? I don't know if
Like-
they even mention him. Do they? Oh yeah. Well, of course they do.
He's mentioned a couple times, but yeah, we have no idea what he's doing at this moment.
They're still being very precious with Luke.
But yeah, I actually, for the most part, for about half of it, I actually was surprised at how well I kept up with the timeline jumps because they all seemed very clear, even if I didn't bother to read the chapter heading. Towards the end, I was just like, oh shit, but that's because the pace had picked up and we were having like 2-page chapters and everything for a while, and it all was coming together, and so that you realize the bigger picture. But yeah, you're right that it's not so much about this macabre situation with Gore, but about these two guys, and then background about how the Organa solo family could have had it all.
I love the Ben bits in this, seriously. Like, I mean, I know that just makes me sound like a Kylo Ren fangirl, but the Ben Solo stuff is so precious.
Yeah, he was like, and I love toddlers, so I was just like, oh, little precious. And I want to talk about that because, like, I think that, there's been some contention over Leia and Han's parenting style. And I think that what we got was, like, such a nuanced look at how kids can still be failed even if they have loving parents. It's so much more nuanced than just they were too busy for him and he was abandoned, literally. I think you get more of an idea that you could, every time you see this baby, he is being held by somebody and being talked to respectfully, but also gently. It's just a sense of, they tried really hard, unfortunately, like this rotten dildo who interfered with their lives. And I think that banned these feelings of resentment that, any kid in the situation that he was in would have still had, because no matter how much you're loved, if your parents are busy, when you think that they should be with you, it's going to fuel some resentment. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about Jane Fonda, and Jane Fonda went to do some protest work against the war for like 6 months or so when her daughter was very young. And Jane Fonda has said now that her daughter has still not forgiven her for that. So I think that, you see more of like, it's not this black and white. Leia and Han were horrible parents who like totally abused their child and thought he was a monster and sent him away for no reason. You get more of, oh, he still had these feelings and they were exacerbated by somebody who manipulated him. Yeah. And I think that's more interesting.
Yeah. No, I think Leia and Han have always had their parenting scrutinized, whether it be in the current canon or in the Legends canon. When actually in the Legends canon, I actually say the upbringing of Jace and Jaina and Anakin was even rougher than anything that Ben has gotten. Because, I mean, I think Jason and Jaina were not with their parents for the first 3 or 4 years of their lives. They were raised by Leia's bodyguard / assistant Winter on this other planet. And it comes up later on that Jaina is actually incredibly resentful of how Leia has not paid attention to her throughout her life. But I think what so many people don't understand, it's like these are people whose lives are so big. Like, they are living legends, and they hold themselves up to the standard where people kind of rally around them, so they can't be with Ben every single moment, but they obviously love him. Like, Han's first scene is lying with baby Ben, and he's, like, stepping on his space Legos, which was adorable, and him trying to figure out how to be a dad, because even 2 years in, he still doesn't know how to do it, because he feels like he's doing everything wrong. And just the fact that he has that care, that he wants to be a good dad, he's just not sure if he's able to, means so much.
Yeah, I still think it means a lot that Han very much respects Leia as much. He loves her and respects and admires her, and it's very clear. And when
I love their relationship
not around,
this.
when she's not around, how he talks about her and how he thinks about her, and they communicate fairly well. For two people who are so different, it's fallen into this way where they know each other's communication patterns, which is amazing. So it just makes it even more sad.
Yeah.
What happens to them later, it's even more heartbreaking.
Let's talk about some of the characters in it.
Okay. Oh, I want to talk about Arrow, the Gungan.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And Peekba. I want to hear you talk about Arrow and Peekba, April.
Yeah, just these two, like, because basically what's happening is these are microaggressions, it's like assuming that this Ewok is a receptionist, not a slicer. And like, you know, how many of us were like, oh my gosh, an Ewok slicer, whenever we heard the character descriptions. And then the thing with the Gungan was just incredible because you have Han being like, yeah, I know how to handle the Gungans, and then walking up to him and saying Misa. And I was talking to somebody about this. It's like people who think that they go to Jamaica and think that they can speak a patois, you know, or people who try to, to use AAVE and fail, you know. And I love that he was put in his place, but there was also some meta level stuff regarding like Jar Jar, and like, no, we're not just Jar Jar is basically kind of what he's saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it was like, it's like a criticism of like, you know, there's things I love about the Phantom Menace, but there are lots of bad writing choices when it comes to racial stereotypes. So I like that this was like criticized.
Yeah, in such a great way. And the character, he was great. Like he kept being like this amazing, resourceful character. You know, it wasn't like something where it was like he demands this respect and then it turns out that he's a dumbass. You know, it was like, no, he's awesome. I did miss, what happened to him? He kind of disappeared, and I may have just like been reading it too fast.
Oh, I can't remember. Like, he got dropped off somewhere nice.
Because he asked to be dropped off, and I think, are we supposed to just assume that they did leave him somewhere like where he'd get dropped off? I can't remember. I think I remember it being mentioned that he was dropped off, but like this happens like halfway through the plot, so I don't remember exactly. Yeah, and it was I just remember
they say they do.
Okay. Yeah. I remember thinking later, like, what happened to Arrow? They didn't leave him down there. They promised.
No. Yeah.
And then Peekpa is just amazing.
I loved her. I thought she was great.
I liked Kasha as well. I like how like Kasha's like, I speak Ewok, you lunks.
Okay.
You know?
Well, you know how I feel about my Twi'leks.
Yes.
Kasha is, oh my god, I love her so much that she's such a good match for Lando. I don't want to compare characters too much, but she is very much like Lando's Leia. She's like not gonna put up with his scoundrel bullshit.
Yeah. She's very different from Leia, but she like fits him the way Leia and fits Han.
That's very much what I mean. She's a bit dirtier around the edges. She's, a smuggler. She's, part of the Free Ryloth movement, and I always love when a Twi'lek female is, a freedom fighter rather than a exotic dancer.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But still very sexy, because there was that scene of them in bed together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sexy. Like, we really acknowledged we're like, people fuck in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
And not just for procreation.
Yes.
Thank you, DJO.
Yes, and also thank you for canonizing Sleku as being basically sexual organs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, most of his new characters were non-human, except Taka, who was non-binary.
There was a part I did notice, like, and I don't know why they didn't figure it out, because, like, when they were, Taka was down there too, though. It was mostly, though, like, I was thinking for a second that Han was only affected by the Bastecs because he was human, but Taka was down there. But that group...
Well, Taka knew about them ahead of time to avoid them, so...
Oh, he came back down, too, didn't he? Yeah, so I think that's why I figured that was why Han was affected and the others weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's just really suggestible. But that whole party, Han was the only human. Okay.
It's definitely an interesting way. Like, I'm so white, just as disclaimer. But obviously in Star Wars and in a lot of science fiction, and we've mentioned this before earlier on, that aliens are used a lot for otherness. A lot of, showing of other races, which I think is still carried through even these days. But it's done, I think, better these days. And it helps when you have a person of color who's writing it, where it's, instead of portraying it as like a yellow peril situation or pouring on all of these stereotypes. It's like, no, these are like actual people. They're exactly like all of the white human characters that we have, that have been the heroes for, 40 years. Like, I mean, not using it as a replacement of actual racial diversity, but using it along with,
Yeah, because they're actually trying with the human diversity as well.
Yeah, relatedly, it's different because it's not racial, but it's important to me that I'm so glad we got like a trans, like non-binary gendered character who is human, because non-binary genders are still very like considered other in our society, and so like in this case, it's important to not just make genders beyond, you know, the Western gender binary. It's important that be something that happens with humans and not other non-humans and droids. Like
they tend to make that a feature
with,
of alien species in the past.
Because I think with non-aliens or with aliens, it's easy because you're just like, you can go with biology, you know, to explain different genders. Where when you're normalizing it with people, you're like, no, this is not about biology. So yeah, I think that's cool to take in that direction. And it's just totally normalized. Nobody questions it. And even before we know Taka's pronouns, he's older, uses they.
Well, yeah, he doesn't. You know? He's not misgendered from Han's point of view.
No.
Sorry, I just misgendered Taka. They.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was cool that before you even hear from this character, already Han is thinking about them in terms of they, not he or she. And then also it was just whenever Kyle and Singer were brought up, it was just totally normal.
I was so happy for that cameo. I was so happy to see Condor.
So yeah, I know it's gross, but can we talk about the Frankendroids? Like,
yeah.
Plot. It was
of course.
Gruesome.
You guys, I want to talk about droids.
Yeah, it was so gruesome in a way that Star Wars really isn't, you know? Like even Phasma had some gore, but not this. Even though they used the bodies of their dead, they used it to survive, and very respectfully, you know?
If I can like jump back, I wanted back when we were talking about prosthetics in Star Wars, we were talking about this today. This was so interesting because like the villain Fyzen Gore is like super crazy and bad, but like I thought it was interesting his thoughts about how it's like, oh, people like dismember droids and use them or like, you know, like organics dismember droids and use them for parts, so why not the other way around? And he's not right. But it's thought-provoking.
They just build them specifically.
Well, it
is very thought-provoking. But yeah, nobody would think twice about like if it was up to, you know, if it was the human or the droid, they wouldn't think twice about taking the droid's arm to replace the human's arm.
Yeah, well, I think droids are put together in like different fashions all the time. Like, I mean, 3PO was a droid made from different parts of other droids. So
yeah,
there's
he?
That. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Right, Annie built him.
It was so weird to me, but also, like, I mean, I'm not condoning what he did, but it's like, it made sense to me in a way, where it's like...
it definitely did.
It's like, yeah, people have been treating the Wookiees like shit for decades now. It's like, of course, they'd like... I mean, like, in Aftermath Life Debt, like, one of them talked about, like, using Wookiee as cattle.
Yeah.
So, it's like, yeah, of course, they're going to be used for droid parts.
Well, and that brings it up, too, the fact that, you know, he's preying on... While he's still on planet, he's preying on basically indigenous people, and then he goes and like they're preying on Wookiees. So, you know,
and he's being so like paternalistic about like, I am the savior of droid kind,
and people bring him up on that twice. They're like, so you're going to free the droids by telling them what to do?
By just like mind control. Yeah,
right. It's like, and he's just like, well, yeah, it's not like that though. And
what is that? You know, what do we call it? Organic savior syndrome?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
So let's talk about L3.
Yes.
What a way to meet her, right?
Yeah,
I'm in love with her. I'm going to marry her.
Yeah.
I'm going to marry L337.
Yeah, I'm super excited for her now. I already was because I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but yeah, super excited. Like, just what a brilliant thing she did. Thinking that far ahead, and also under pressure because she didn't have access to the phalanx for very long, and she was just like, this is what I'm going to do.
It's very much like how like people taking small actions can like like she was kind and planned and like had a conversation with the phalanx like years ago, and then it's not like the phalanx like immediately right then was like, wow, I have seen the error of my ways, and I'm under the thumb of being manipulated. But eventually, he did turn on his oppressor.
Yeah, I was so, when I got to that, I was like, why am I just seeing this passage now? I figured,
It's so profound.
Yeah, I thought I'd be hearing about that and not kitchen droids.
Yeah, I mean, the whole MacGuffin of this. I mean, because like you said, like the plot is like it's like connective tissue for the character stuff.
yeah.
The whole MacGuffin is about a creepy paternalistic person reaching into minds to control them and manipulate them. And they're droid minds, so like it's funny on a fandom level. There's been like some like anti-droid bigotry, like which like ignores one of the points of the story. In my not so humble opinion. Let me see if I can talk about droids.
I'll go ahead and read the segment we're talking about while you're thinking.
Yeah, please do.
There's only so much a droid can do, once it's been programmed. We evolved, sure, but to go all the way against our initial machinations, that takes some time, Organics are pretty similar, Lando said. Now that I think about it, we evolve. Takes time, and when we do make those sudden, seemingly out of the blue changes, usually it turns out the seeds have been there all along. It's just no one saw them. You mean when someone makes what appears to be a major change, it may be that it's really them revealing who they've truly been all along? Their original programming, so to speak. Something like that. Sure.
It's very insightful.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes, and people can disagree. They may be like, no, because I mean, that can work in ways where it's like, okay, so you're saying that if something bad happens to you that makes you make wrong choices right away, you're going to just revert back to that. But it also can be taken as, no, we're all born with this potential, and what initially goes in, if it's good, no matter what happens, we will eventually get back to that. And that's, I think that's what we're talking about here, is that point of view, because the Phalanx was originally a Medroid. So their original programming was to heal. And save lives.
Yeah, I think that's the wider context.
I think that's the point of view that we're going for, is that you can go back to being that person that makes good, kind choices and doesn't hurt people.
I think my problem, why I'm having trouble coming up with words, is because I think about droids in Star Wars all the time. And so I could... And it's all connected in my mind, and like canon has really been feeding it, like just confirming a lot of my headcanon. So I'm really just trying to like not go on a complete soliloquy. A callback in the Rogue One novelization. It's not in the movie, but there's a scene where Bodhi and K2SO are talking, and K2SO is like, he doesn't easily trust. And Bodhi says to him, "Well, you know how Cassian reprogrammed you, Galen reprogrammed me." I love that. Like it's a similar moment where like an organic person and a droid person are trying to communicate to each other.
Yes.
Across like very different ways of being. It's both like really beautiful, and also then I also think of the problems with that. There's a lot to think about there psychologically, like the fact that like droids can literally be hacked. Like they can be reprogrammed by other droids, they can be reprogrammed by humans. But it's interesting because also in this fictional universe, there's people, there's the Force, you can use mind tricks. So like I'm very like adamant that like droids are people, or like at least many kinds of them are people.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, guys. I cannot like. No,
okay.
I feel like I can. I'm not like talking towards a thesis point.
but with all listening to what you're saying, I would really like you to watch Next Generation episode Measure of a Man and write a Star Wars version of it.
Oh, what is that?
That's the one where they do the trial as to whether Data is a person or not.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh my god, you have to watch that one with everything.
I've never been a big Trek person, but I like it. I used to watch it was just very spotty. Like I used to watch reruns of it with my mom because she liked to watch it when it originally came out. So I will hunt that down.
It is one of the best episodes, and you of all people would like it. Yeah. I would like to see you write a Star Wars version of it.
I also have a book I need to recommend to you, and I don't think I have. The Mad Scientist's Daughter. Have you heard of that one?
Me? No.
Yeah, you should look that one up. Yeah, I think that's the name. I'll just double check that's the name of it.
A lot of my thinking about like droid, robots and stuff is specifically with in the Star Wars universe, but a lot of it applies outside too. There's this moment with L3 in the last shot where she's in hyperspace with Lando, and like she can process the information, like she can see specific worlds going by. It just gave me shivers because like droids are like in universe, droids are so other. And yet, like, constantly the narrative implies and outright states that they are persons,
Yeah.
And
Well, it shows she also has an inner life. That's one of the things I love whenever you get droid POV, because to have POV, you have to have an inner life,
And she's so philosophical. Oh, God, I love her so much. But, like, the prologue of Last Shot was from Lando's protocol droid's point of view, and that was just so tragic,
Oh, yeah.
In the end, where it's like it's from his point of view as he gets taken over, and it's like it keeps talking about like the small voice in him. There's the manipulating voice being killed, but like his true self is screaming no inside him.
I should ask Daniel Jose Holder on Twitter if that was inspired at all by Get Out and The Sunken Place.
Ask him. It sounds like an interesting question.
We should probably start giving our final thoughts on Last Shot.
Yeah, even if you're adamant that you're not gonna care about Solo, this book you should read for sure, because it gives you these characters and it gives you some really insightful background. And if you don't want to go see the space spaghetti western, then read this book.
Amen. And if you do want to see Solo, then definitely read this, because this will give you some good prep for going into Solo.
We think.
Having not seen the film, this is what we think.
Yeah, I mean, like, with everything that they've kind of set up, I mean, it's everything, for the most part, is set afterwards. So, I mean, some of the Lando stuff takes place beforehand. The flashbacks are very much trying to establish, I think, what the characters are going to be like in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, they are different characters than we see in the original trilogy. In the flashbacks, they're not done baking yet. They haven't turned into who they're going to be. And so it's...
I had lots of fun because I definitely pictured Donald and Alden in the flashback, and Harrison and Billy D in the ones in the present.
Yeah.
I did too. I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I totally did.
And it worked. Like, I don't know. It really worked for me. So,
yeah.
Read it.
Yeah, I think read all of the books, and read any of the Star Wars books. I mean, so far, I have not found one that I haven't enjoyed. I mean, there are some that are definitely better than others, but they're all really solid.
Basically, any of the adult and young adult books are great.
Yes.
And you can't go wrong.
And we will be talking about Solo next month, because is coming out. But month after that, we're going to be talking about some more novels, because there are so many of them, and we could not put them in one podcast. So we'll be doing some more then. So until then, go read Star Wars books, and thank you to April and Smalls for being on this podcast with me. I always love talking to you guys.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Likewise.
Yep. Same.
And to our listeners, go enjoy the books, Solo, and may the Force be with you. Thank you again to April and Smalls for joining me on that round table. I really enjoyed doing that. I love the Star Wars books, and I could talk about them all day. And we'll be doing a second part where we talk about some more of the books. After we get through some of the Solo stuff, we're going to have to talk about that a little bit. So we got a comment on our Last Jedi podcast. This is from listener Carolina. This was a great fun to listen to. Also, I laughed out loud when I realized I'm reading some of the same fics you guys have written / we're talking about. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the podcast. We all really love talking about The Last Jedi, and wow, I really hope you're reading some of the fics that we've written, because I know all of us work really hard on them. And if you're just reading ones that we've talked about and ones that we haven't written, I mean, we tend to read good fics, so you obviously have very good taste in fics. So thank you for writing to us, and please keep writing to us. We want to know how we've done and what you guys think. So you can drop us a line on Tumblr at trashcompactorpodcast.tumblr.com, on Twitter at swtrashpodcast, on our website at trashcompactorpodcast.com, or through good old-fashioned email at thetrashcompactorpodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out TeePublic and Redbubble to find some of our show merchandise to help support the show. So we'll be doing a special Reacts podcast at the end of this month to talk about Solo. And then in June, we'll be doing a full roundtable about how Solo fits into the Star Wars universe and just what we think of it. So, until next time, may the Force be with you.